Hello and welcome back. I'm Estrella, your lovely host. And today we are changing things up just a little bit and for the foreseeable future. We are going to start talking about vampires, werewolves, and other creatures that have been depicted in movies and comparing the lore around such creatures and matching them up with different Hollywood characters. For this first video, which I will probably be doing at least a couple parts on it, we are comparing and contrasting Count Orlok and Edward Cullen. I know, they are two Hollywood vampires, but the contrast between the two is greatly vast, and I thought it was quite interesting what I had learned. Without further ado, this is Culture Anxiety in Edward Cullen and Nosferatu. Let's get into it. Wait. But before that, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that noti bell. Okay, now let's get into it. From Plague to Passion, Culture Anxiety in Edward Cullen and Nosferatu. The vampire has long served as a mirror for society's deepest fears, from the grotesque predator of early 20th century horror to the romantic anti-hero of contemporary fiction. The figure of the vampire evolves alongside shifting cultural anxieties. A comparison between Count Orlok in Nosferatu and Edward Cullen from Twilight reveals more than just aesthetic differences. It exposes profound transformations in how Western culture understands disease, sexuality, and morality. While Orlok embodies collective terror and uncontrolled contagion, Edward represents managed desire and ethical self-restraint. Together, they trace a culture shift from fearing external collapse to wrestling with internal control. In Nosferatu, vampirism is inseparable from plague. Orlok travels by ship, leaving a trail of corpses behind him. Rats accompany his arrival and entire towns succumb to mysterious illness. The imagery closely parallels the devastation of World War I and the influenza pandemic of 1918 to 1919, which left Europe traumatized by mass death. Orlok functions less as an individual character and more as a force of contamination. His presence signals societal vulnerability. Death can arrive silently, invisibly, and without moral reasoning. Importantly, Orlok's origin is obscure and ancient. He is not sympathetically made. He simply exists as an eruption of decay. This ambiguity reinforces his symbolic function. He is disease personified, an unstoppable reminder that civilization structures are fragile. Edward Cullen's vampirism, by contrast, originates in illness, but it transforms into something controlled. Dying of influenza in 1918, he is deliberately turned by a compassionate vampire who seeks to save him. Rather than spreading the plague, Edward becomes stronger, more beautiful, and nearly indestructible. His condition is regulated through strict ethical codes, most notably his family's refusal to drink human blood. Vampirism becomes a managed state, not a contagion. This reflects a modern sensibility shaped by medical advancement and psychological discourse. Disease is no longer purely mystical terror. It is diagnosable, containable, and survivable. Edward's existence suggests that even something dangerous can be integrated into society through discipline and self-awareness. Where Orlok represents uncontrolled epidemic death, Edward embodies the possibility of coexistence. The vampire has always carried erotic undertones. In 19th century literature, such as Dracula by Bram Stoker, the bite often symbolizes transgressive desire. Nosferatu intensifies this association. Orlok's interest in Ellen is invasive and unsettling. His presence threatens domestic stability and female purity. Sexuality here is depicted as dangerous and corrupting, an external force that invades and destroys. This portrayal reflects early 20th century anxiety surrounding gender roles, foreign influence, and moral decay. Desire is something to be feared because it disrupts social order. Orlok's sexuality is predatory. It consumes without consent and without remorse. Edward Cullen, created by Stephanie Meyer, reverses this paradigm. His desire for Bella Swan is intense, but it is defined by restraint. He fears harming her and therefore practices extreme self control. In this narrative, erotic tension is not about violation, but about discipline. Edward's moral worth is measured by his ability to suppress his predatory instincts. This shift mirrors early 21st century concerns about intimacy and agency. The sexuality is still powerful, but it must be consensual and ethically governed. Rather than symbolizing corruption, desire becomes proof of emotional depth when restrained appropriately. Edward's struggle suggests that masculinity is validated through protection and self denial, not domination. Thus, while Orlok reflects fear of uncontrolled male sexuality, Edward embodies this romanticization of controlled desire. The threat is no longer that passion will invade from the outside, but that it must be internally managed. Perhaps the most significant difference between these vampires lies in their moral frameworks. Orlok exists within a binary moral universe. He is wholly monstrous, devoid of guilt or redemption. His destruction restores order. This reflects a worldview shaped by war and instability, in which evil appears external and must be eradicated. Edward's world, however, operates on psychological complexity. He experiences guilt, wrestles with temptation, and consciously chooses ethical behavior. The central conflict is internal rather than external. Evil is not a separate force invading society, it is a potential within itself. The drama lies in the daily act of choosing restraint. This transformation corresponds to broader cultural shifts towards introspection and individualism. Modern narratives often explore trauma, identity, and moral ambiguity. Edward is compelling precisely because he is conflicted. His monstrosity does not define him absolutely, his choices do. Nosferatu, directed by F.W. Murnau, emerged from a Germany reeling from war, economic collapse, and epidemic disease. Its aesthetic, long shadows, distorted architecture, and spectral movement, visualizes existential dread. The vampire is a symbol of societal breakdown. Twilight, published in 2005, arose in a culture fascinated by immortality, youth, and emotional intensity. Its vampire is not grotesque but idealized. Immortality is no longer solely a curse, it is an opportunity for eternal romance. The fear has shifted from annihilation to loss of self control. In essence, the transformation from Orlok to Edward signals a broader psychological turn. Early 20th century horror externalized fear in monstrous figures. Early 21st century fiction internalizes fear, framing as an ethical struggle within itself. Count Orlok and Edward Cullen represent two ends of a cultural spectrum. Orlok is a plague, predation, and absolute otherness, a manifestation of collective trauma in a world afraid of collapse. Edward is restraint, romantic tension, and moral complexity, a figure shaped by modern anxieties about identity, consent, and self control. Through these two vampires, we witness the evolution of Western fears. The monster has not disappeared, it has changed form. That was once an external invader has become an internal struggle. In that transformation lies the story not only of the vampire, but of the societies that created him. I hope you enjoyed the video, and also make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that noti bell. And stay tuned for more videos from us. And as always, stay safe, courteous, and polite out there. Until next time, and remember, stay anomalous.